A very warm welcome from wherever you're watching, following, and listening to us from across Africa and beyond. This is Procmura podcast coming to you from the Procmura Media Center here in Nairobi. I am your host, Sam Abuya. And in this, our first episode, we want to turn our focus on understanding the basics and the aspect of the freedom of religion or belief in relation to peace and development, both in Africa and more specifically here in Kenya. And to help us in that discussion, we have here on set our very good Sheikh Ahmed Set, and we also have other panelists who are joining us virtually. We have Reverend Lucy, who is joining us from Coast, and we have Reverend Dr. Buire, who is joining us from Nairobi. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. And just to, for introduction purposes, we will start with our Sheikh here in studio. He will tell us a little bit of himself, what he does, and where we can find him before we go into listening to Reverend Lucy and Reverend Dr. Buire. Sheikh.
Thank you very much. I want to start with in the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. My name's Ahmed Set. I'm from Isiolo, and I'm the chairman of the Interfaith Network in Isiolo.
Mm-hmm.
Isiolo is actually in the center of the country and is one of the fastest growing town where Christian and Muslim coexist very peacefully and understand each other. And as a result of that, we are enjoying mega development programs, and the economy is growing very fast in that area. And I'm happy that we work very closely on interfaith basis network. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Sheikh. You've mentioned something very important, that Isiolo is really developing, and you've mentioned that you're the chair of the Isiolo Interfaith Network, but we will come back into that. For now, we want to introduce Reverend Lucy. If you can hear us, can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and where you minister, and basically introduce yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, and grateful for this day. My name is Lucy Maithia. I am currently at Coast in Kenya at Coast, and I teach in an institution, a theological institution in Mombasa County, and also I get some teaching at Pwani University. And currently I'm also a student at St. Paul's University, taking my master's degree in Islam, Christian Muslim relations at St. Paul's University. And I'm grateful for this forum, whereby a lot has to be unearthed, and I am sure that we are going to be encouraged moving forward, even to bring forth development in our communities, spite of the religions that we subscribe to. Thank you.
Great. That's a very good introduction. And before Dr. Buire comes in, I want to remind us, our viewers and followers, that you can keep this conversation going on our through our social media platforms. And on Facebook, we are at the Program for Christian-Muslim Relations in Africa. And on Twitter, we are at Procmura_Prica, and you can also follow this follow our content through our YouTube channel, and on YouTube we are at Procmura Prica. Dr. Buire.
Yes, Sam.
You might be speaking to some of our listeners and viewers for the first time, so I think you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Reverend Dr. John Peter Buire. I'm an Anglican priest, joining you from Limuru, Nairobi, Kenya. I'm a lecturer also at Kenyatta University. I'm a director of Forb, Kenya. I'm also a director of religion and philosophy in Africa with the Pan-African Peace and Dialogue Institute, and also Peace Ambassador Procmura. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, thank you. And when we speak here, I want to remind us that we are speaking to a continental audience. So we may remember maybe to tell them where Limuru is, where Isiolo is, where Coast is, because we are speaking to the continental audience and as well as actually even beyond Africa. Now, Dr. Bwire, you mentioned something very important, that you're a Forb coordinator in Kenya. And I want to ask you to start us off. What does the concept of freedom of religion or belief mean to you, or what does it entail?
Well, the concept of freedom and of religion, freedom of religion and belief, is an important aspect of all the believers, whereby they are accorded that free atmosphere to participate in their religious practices, beliefs, and other rituals related to their religion without any hindrance.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bwire, for that. Maybe Sheikh, you can contribute. How do you understand the concept of the freedom of religion or belief?
Thank you very much. I concur with Dr. Bwire. And in the Islamic concept is that there is no compassion in religion, no force in religion. And every person who believes in any religion has the freedom to worship in the manner prescribed by his religion without any interference, without any disturbance. And this is also enshrined in our national constitution, where there is freedom of worship without crossing the boundary of interfering with other religious worship, freedom of worship.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we are getting a gist of what Forb is all about, especially in relation to Procmura and peace and development. Reverend Lucy, I don't know whether you have something to chip in, and as far as the concept of the freedom of religion or belief is concerned, as well as maybe what are some of the misconceptions that you've come across in terms of the freedom of religion or belief.
Thank you so much. In as far as my point is that freedom of religion, freedom of belief, it is that thought whereby a person is allowed to exercise what they are persuaded about as far as their belief system is concerned. But because we are law-abiding citizens, we also know that a freedom of belief must not also interfere with the other person's freedom of belief. And so in respecting one another's freedom, we also build that national cohesion, which now becomes a real foundation for development. And yeah, I think that is what I can put across at that point in time. Yeah.
Any misconceptions that you've come across in terms of Forb?
Perhaps the misconception could be the attitude of wanting to bring the other person to your own faith, and making it look like you're right if only you subscribe to this particular belief system. So I think there isn't much. So it's not about you becoming one or becoming the same, but the aspect of allowing the other person to be without judgmental, without being judgmental, without forcing them to be what they have not really subscribed to. So that freedom aspect, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now bringing in Sheikh, who is with me here in studio. If you heard Reverend Lucy, she mentioned something to do with national cohesion, which she tied to the freedom of religion or belief, something which, again, you said is protected in our constitution. To be more specific, in Chapter 4 of our constitution here in Kenya. Now, what would be your comment? What are the points of convergence between the freedom of religion or belief, national cohesion, and peace and development? Because I remember when we were starting, you said Isiolo, where you come from, is experiencing good development because of the kind of freedom of religion or belief that you people are having there.
Thank you very much. First of all, as I've said earlier, freedom of religion is enshrined not only in the Constitution, but also in our theological books. In Islam, I've already said that there is no force or conversion in religion. The Almighty Allah has also given us that freedom. If you look at the world, there are different religious beliefs in thousands. But He has also given us the scriptures to read. So whatever you are there to that strictly, and let people see by example. Because religion is about peace. And once there is peace, also development will come up very strongly.
That's true.
Investors will come up. I gave you an example of Isiolo, where we are enjoying freedom of religion, and we work very closely as religious entities, especially Muslim Christians, and if even the Hindus, if are there. And in this respect, there have been peace, there have been respect. We complement even the government jointly. For example, there have been a severe drought. We have been working closely to feed the hungry. We have hospitals, we have learning institutions. Muslim comes to go to Christian schools. Christian come to Muslim institution.
That's true.
And they have the freedom of worship. They are respected. So we have to inculcate in the younger generation that the Almighty God already have stated that there's no force in religion. Sometimes because of ignorance, some religious theologians normally do what we call street preachings, which bring a lot of misunderstandings. And that one, we have stopped it in our places.
Okay.
What we need is to work closely, to cooperate closely, and lakum dinukum wala din in the Quran. You worship the way you worship, I worship the way I worship. But end of the day, we are brothers in humanity. We have to complement each other. We have to work closely. And as I said, the Constitution also guarantees freedom of worship in this country. And I believe it also in other constitutions in Africa, it is the same. So what we need to do is, being religious people, we have to coexist peacefully. And if there are issues that come up, God has given us a solution that when there is a problem between two, sit and mediate.
That's true.
And if you can't, call a third person. So that's a peaceful way of resolving conflict. It is religious. And we normally say that if there is no peace in religion, there is no peace in other areas. So religion is a tool that brings people of different faith, culture, background, beliefs together for peaceful coexistence.
That's great.
Yes.
To our viewers, this is the kind of wisdom that this podcast will be bringing your way. And as I mentioned earlier, remember you can keep this conversation going through our social media platforms. On Facebook, we are the Program for Christian-Muslim Relations in Africa. On Twitter, we are at Procmura_Prica. And I want to bring in Dr. Bwire. Even before you contribute to what Sheikh was saying here in studio, I want to ask, how important is it to have knowledge on Forb? How important is it to have knowledge on the freedom of religion or belief? Because Sheikh here touched on something he called ignorance, which maybe can be one of the challenges that the concept of Forb maybe is encountering. But how important is it to have people who are knowledgeable as far as Forb is concerned, and even that giving them that space of being free to exercise the kind of religion they choose to? Daktari.
Allow me to give some little background based on the Kenyan scenario on
Sure,
this
sure.
question on the importance of knowledge of Forb. As Sheikh has already pointed out, we know that Kenya is a member of Commonwealth, and as such, it has ratified and even subscribed to a number of peace accords, including Geneva Convention on Peace and Security and also on human rights. As such, Kenya is committed and has permitted freedom of worship in its constitution, as it has already been mentioned here in its constitution, chapter 4. And therefore, there is no national religion. And this is very important. Even though we have a plural kind of society where we have more than one religion, but we have two major religions in Kenya. We have Christianity, which is about 80%, and then Islam, which is about now 15%, and the rest occupying 5%. Now, despite suspicions and mistrust here and there, we know that Christians and Muslims live peacefully, mutually and peacefully side by side in Kenya. This peaceful coexistence has positively contributed to development in terms of micro and macroeconomics. But back to your question, how important or significant is the knowledge on Forb to Kenyans? In the book, a good book in the Bible by Hosea, we see that he laments that my people are perishing due to lack of knowledge. And therefore, when a people have an understanding of the other religion, the other culture, there is no fear. For example, if most Christians would understand Islamic religion, the question of Islamophobia will be a gone case. And therefore, significantly, people will be able to engage from a knowledgeable point of view because you understand the other religion, they also understand their religion. And so knowledge empowers dialogue, knowledge empowers coexistence, knowledge empowers exchange of ideas so that people are able to deeply understand one another and relate positively. That notwithstanding, we know that development has come about, especially in Kenya, because of the peace that we have had between our two major religions. And this has contributed immensely in personnel capacity building in the areas of education and training, in terms of employment, whereby people can work in any part of this Kenya, apart from probably northeastern Kenya, where we have had a little bit of skirmishes here and there because of Al-Shabaab and sporadic terrorism attacks. But people now are free to work in any part of this Kenya, and that contributes to development. They are also able to do businesses here and there, and in Kenya, business is thriving because of the peace that we have, because of peaceful coexistence of Kenyans despite their religious affiliation. Now, for the first time, we have had infrastructure development in some of the marginalized areas, from Nairobi going to Isiolo, to Moyale. We have very good roads. And then from, again, Garissa going to Dadaab, Mandera, we also have very good roads. And these roads were never there when we had insecurity in those places. But now that we have peace between Christians and Muslims, infrastructure and communication network has been put in place because of that. So we have roads. We also have roads. For example, we have the newest road network in terms of SGR. And this construction of SGR has boosted development, micro and macro economic development in our country.
I want to bring in Sheikh because he comes from those parts, neighboring what the parts that you mentioned. And you've been following Dr. Bwire. I don't know whether you have any comments in terms of the kind of development that Kenya is experiencing. And I don't know whether you can tie that actually to the kind of freedom of religion or belief that the country has had in place for quite some time.
Thank you for what Dr. Bwire have stated in details. Actually, we have a divorce system where resources are trickled down to the counties. And northern region for a very long time has been left behind because all the decision was being made in Nairobi. And we were classified as an area that was not producing anything. There was high potential and low potential area. But as a result of devolution, I concur with Daktari, a lot have been done in the north. And now we have tarmac roads from Isiolo to Moyale. Another one is being constructed or built from Isiolo to Mandera, connecting that side. And this road normally opens for transport. We are bordering two countries, Somalia, Ethiopia, and businesses is actually flourishing. If you see in Isiolo, the number of buses coming from Moyale to Nairobi is almost 10 to 12 buses per day. The number of banks that have come up in the recent years is an indicator that the economy is growing very fast.
Great.
In North, as he has put it, there was a fear because of terrorism attack by the Al-Shabaab. And we know that any kind of violence is sinful in all our religions. So what happened is that the Muslims leaders and Christian leaders worked jointly, and we found that terrorism has no place in any religion, especially in Islam, which they normally use. Islam has nothing to do with terrorism because the Quran has already stated that if you kill one human being, you have destroyed humanity. And if you save one life, you have saved humanity. So they go contrary to that. Terrorism is as a result of regional and international interest. It has nothing to do with religion. And we have understood it. So as a result of that relation and dialogue and meetings and coming together and sensitization, especially through Procmura, if you go today to the north, recently I was in Mandera, for training of the CARE Users Committee. I'm a member of the National Task Force on AJS, or Alternative Justice System. You find that Kenyans of different faiths work in Mandera.
Great.
And Mandera is in the border
Ah.
next to Somalia.
Actually, I was when I wanted to intercept. I mean to jump in.
Yes.
I wanted to ask. It's great that we're having this discussion.
Yes.
Through this podcast.
Yes.
And it's very pleasing to hear what you're saying.
Correct.
Because you're saying that about an area which not so long ago
Yes.
was experiencing a lot of crisis,
Yes.
if we can call them that.
Yes.
Especially, and
Yes.
I think they had some religious undertones.
Yes.
But now it's a different story altogether, courtesy of what some of these organizations, including Procmura, has
Yes.
been doing
Yes.
to sensitize the masses in
Yes.
terms of letting people
Yes.
practice their religion
Yes.
they want as they choose to.
Actually, that was a tactic to kill the Christians, and they killed the Christians so that Christian and Muslims could turn on each other. But we found that was a tactics. We did not fall into their pitfall. We came together. We condemned them. Religious leaders in the whole of Northeastern province stood and even safeguarded the churches. And today we went with Procmura to Garissa.
Sure.
And we had to create a chapter of Christian-Muslim relation in Garissa University, where a massacre had happened. And we walked even into the town freely. We went Bishop Kalunyu with you all people. And today, if you go to Wajir, the same, I went there. We have Christians, sisters and brothers, working in banks, in even private organizations, Islamic charities, working in businesses. They have their own businesses. Recently, I was in Moyale. The same, in the border.
You're widely traveled,
So
Sheikh.
that relationship have brought a broad spectrum of development as a result of the confidence now the Christians have with the Muslims. There's no fear.
Sure.
There's no fear.
Okay.
The country is open and the development is coming up very well.
That's great.
Yes.
Reverend Lucy, I think and I want to believe that you've been following Sheikh and Dr. Bwire as
Yes.
they've been talking about these issues around peace, development, and Forb. Sheikh here is a religious leader. Dr. Bwire is also a Reverend Dr. Bwire is a religious leader as well. You are as well. My question to you, even maybe as you have a comment to what they've been talking about, what is that role do you think religious leaders need to play in terms of promoting and protecting Forb in the country, in Kenya, that is?
Okay. It's been great listening to Dr. Bwire and a good Sheikh whom we have met previously in Isiolo. It is really great to see him again. And I think basically when we talk about Forbes, talk about the freedom of religion, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, it actually brings about the question of dealing with the religious hostilities, restrictions that actually create a negative environment for development. And as religious leaders, we got a high role because one, as religious leaders, we are leaders. That is, people follow us, basically, or literally saying, speaking. We are role models. And the words of a religious leader are so powerful. And that is why the first thing I think as religious leaders is to be, let me use this word for lack of a better one, but I think we should be delivered from the fear of the other. And bringing in a universal perspective of humanity, because if we do not come in with the first aspect of being human first. We are first human beings. And God, all of us, we are religious, and therefore we subscribe to some faith in God. And if we subscribe to that faith in that God whom we believe in, then I think we need to uphold the dignity of humanity. We are human first. And therefore, as religious leaders, we need to condemn those who wear religious outfits, but they are criminals. Like Sheikh has been putting it across that Al-Shabaab has nothing to do with Islam and other religious extremists in Christianity too. So anybody who is wearing a religious outfit, I think there should be clear checks and balances when it comes to us as religious leaders. How do we distinguish the genuine religious leaders from those who are masquerading as religious people and yet propagating wickedness in the society, prohibiting that cohesion, bringing about very negative ideologies that bring about division and even kind of looking at the other person of a different religion as criminal per se. So we need to work on bringing about that deliberate action of bringing the people together, having meetings of both Muslims and Christians. When we come together, talk together, especially in things that matter to all of us, and development matters to all of us. If a road is constructed, all of us use it. If we dig a well, or we build an hospital or even a school, all our children will be part and parcel of that. All the people will be treated in that hospital. And so if we come together and front humanity ahead of our religious subscriptions, then that way we will be in a position to grow, develop, or rather build a proper foundation for meaningful development, where we all own the projects that we have. We will not say that this project is specifically for us who are Muslims, for us who are Christians. And if we take away the brackets, those religious brackets, we remove them, we begin to interact as human beings, then I think that way we'll be in a position as religious leaders to break out from the misconceptions of which has been created over time about people of different religions. Thank you.
Wow, that's really amazing, Reverend Lucy, I must say. And now, I think Sheikh has something to add. I don't know, in a few words.
I concur with her, and we should build on our similarities and the differences. As I said, Quran has specified, "Lakum dinukum waliya din." You go to the church, I go to the mosque. We have our own ways of praying.
That's true.
But we must build very strongly on our similarities. And you know, Christian and Muslim similarities is 80%.
Yeah,
Is
wow,
80%.
wonderful. But many people don't know that out there.
The biggest problem is we have what we call intra-ignorance and inter-ignorance. We have intra-ignorance. We have to educate our own faithful followers. If it is the Muslims, we are undertaking initiative to educate the Muslims about other beliefs. And it is there very clearly in the Quran how we should respect and we should work closely. If it is the Christian also, the same. Because hostility comes when you have ignorant leaders who preach contrary to the correct ideology of that religion, whether it is Muslims or Christianity. Then hate comes in. And remember, the devil is also doing his own work. He was not created for nothing.
He
was thrown away as an angel, and now he has to divide us. Immediately you come out of the church, he waits for you in the doorstep. And you come out of the mosque, he waits for you on the doorstep.
Yeah.
So number two, we have to coexist. We have to work together for meaningful development to improve the livelihood of our communities. Because majority of the populace in Africa and in Kenya are young people, and they are in object poverty. And as a result of that, if they are not given guidance by religious leaders, then you find that we are going to get gangs, and these gangs will mature to terrorists and groups that will create problems. Like in Mombasa, I know she will agree with me that there have been various groups in Mombasa disturbing the communities, whether they are Muslims or Christians. So we must preach religion, and religion is about peace. It's about love. You see, in Christianity we say peacemakers are the children of God.
Sure.
In Islam it is emphasized that even Assalamu alaikum means peace. The word Islam stands for peace. And Almighty God has guided us that all your body should give peace to another human being. All your physical body, whether it is eyes, whether it is the hands, whether it's the legs, should give peaceful to other human beings.
Great.
Yes, and we should love each other as neighbors.
Yeah.
And
We
above
are
all,
told
we
that
are
in the Bible
Kenyans.
as well.
We are Kenyans.
Mhm.
And you see the way we work, the way we interact. Go to Italy, majority of the business people are Muslims, but the majority of their customers are Christians. It is as a result of this very good relationship that religious leaders have inculcated in their followers. And it is not religious leaders, it's the religious teachings that we must coexist. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Sheikh. And as we looking forward to, as we come to the close of this first podcast, we want to hear from Dr. Buire, because yes, we've talked a lot about how good maybe the country Kenya is doing in terms of Forb, but we cannot really say that we are doing at 100%. Dr. Buire, I believe you're hearing me. Yeah, you're here. Maybe what are the small gaps, whether small or big, I should say, that you think more work needs to be done in terms of promoting and protecting Forb? What are those gaps, and probably what can we do to close in those gaps?
As I was saying, we know that Forb is a catalyst for development, for employment, for trade. It's a catalyst for urbanization. It's a catalyst for foreign investors. And we have seen mushrooming of religious institutions here and there, in terms of churches and mosques, even deeper into the rural villages. However, a lot needs again to be done in this area because of the infiltration of Al-Shabaab from Somalia that has a little bit brought Christians and Muslims at loggerheads and a little bit of misunderstanding. What should be done? I would expect that religious leaders, the priests and the sheikhs, should be targeted so that they are sensitized and even trained in the area of Forb, and this training should trickle down to the ground, to the grassroots, so that the impact is felt. Sometimes people go for training and they keep it to themselves. We would like this form of sensitization to trickle down to the grassroots. The other thing is to deal with the question of Islamophobia, particularly in Kenya. Whenever a Christian see a Muslim, because of lack of knowledge and understanding, they still see not a very friendly person. what comes into their mind is focus on whatever terrorists who are associated to Islam probably has done, the damage that has been done by people who are associated with Islam. That fear is still there. And Forb has the capacity and is capable to deal with this fear that is instilled among the people. And therefore, this fear has also brought about mistrust and suspicion, particularly when we come together for dialogue. People come with hidden cards and suspicion under the table. Is it plainly a discussion for peace, a discussion for development, a discussion for knowledge, or behind the curtains, the other group is targeting us for conversion? So this area is still wanting that the prevailing suspicion and mistrust, if it is dealt to it, then we are set to go. The other thing would be the use of religion by politicians. Now, we know that there has been a lot of politicization of religion in Kenya. And whenever politicians are looking for their political positions, we see them going around mosques, going around churches for rubber stamping. How I wish that church leaders would come to their senses and keep off politicians from their places of worship, which has become a platform for politicking in Kenya. This area is really wanting, and how I wish that the government and religious institutions can team up together to work on this. There are quite a number of issues that probably we need to work on so that we make Forb work, particularly in Kenya and the rest of African countries. The question of funding activities in the area of Forb to train more people, to sensitize more people, to reach out to more people. Sometimes funding is needed, especially to gather people and to facilitate the movement from one place to another. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, thank you, Daktari. To our continental audience, Daktari basically means doctor here in Kenya. It's a Swahili word. And Reverend Lucy, I believe you followed Dr. Bwire. And I want to bring in something that happened just a few days ago here in Kenya, actually, in the capital city. And I believe, Reverend Lucy, even from the coast, you also saw that in the media. A church and a mosque was burnt a few days ago here in the capital city. That tells us that there is still more room for improvement, or more needs to be done in terms of promoting Forb. Maybe, is there any specific thing or something else that Dr. Bwire left out? Maybe a burning issue that you think or believe should be done in terms of promoting and protecting Forb for peace and peaceful coexistence of people of different faiths?
I think that I have followed him, and he has brought about very powerful points, and the mistrust and suspicion that he has fronted are real. And I think that the incidents that happened in the capital yesterday, it is really regrettable. And one of the things is the question of politicians using religion. I think somehow, this is just my personal take, I think somehow it has made people to feel like, or come to a point of losing hope in religion and feel like there isn't anyway there isn't much in faith, this faith thing, and so banning a church and a mosque, for them it's like I read like a statement of we do not have faith anymore in the church or in the
Religion.
mosque. Or maybe people have really come to that point of getting disillusioned whether really religion makes sense. And that is where now, as religious leaders and Forbes, we need to come in strongly. And first and foremost is to point out at the wickedness that is done in the name of religion. We need to see strong statements from those of that particular religious position. If, for example, someone in the Christian faith has done something that is negative in the community, we need to see Christians standing firmly and condemn that. If someone from the Islamic faith has done something bad or has brought about some terroristic kind of tendencies or actions, we need to see people from the Islamic faith also condemn it, and they condemn it meaningfully. Either way, we don't need to come to a point of whereby we are thinking like, or rather we are waiting the other to condemn what is happening. Or rather, if something has happened in the is been done by a Christian, now if a Muslim condemns it, it's kind of will be interpreted like those are Muslims attacking us. If something has happened from it has been projected by someone from the Islamic faith, if a Christian condemns it, at first it will be like Christians are attacking us. So what I'm kind of suggesting is if anything that is negative is being projected by someone from this particular religious belief, let people from that perspective, first and foremost, stand in condemnation of that. And then we bring about both religious leaders from both sides. And I think we need to broaden our brackets from just focusing Muslims and the Christians alone, even to bring about the smaller religious groups in Kenya, so that we can have a national face when it comes to this dealing with the negative stuff that undermine development in our country, so that we can also empower people to be different without getting ridiculed or without getting intimidated or even risking themselves because they have just stood for their faith. But we must not allow religion to be used as a cover-up for wickedness in the community.
Thank
So I
you,
think that
Reverend,
is what I wanted to bring.
Lucy. My apologies. Sheikh, in just a few words, as your last words in this our first episode, what is your comment on that? Because basically what we saw happen is clawing back on the development and steps we'd taken in terms of promoting peace and peaceful coexistence of people of different faiths.
Thank you very much. In ending, in few words, we need actually more dialogues in the whole country. And what is happening now is political. It has nothing to do with religion. What happened in Kibera, I want to thank the Interreligious Council, both Muslim and Christians. Our leaders made early intervention. You saw them in the TVs, visiting the mosque, visiting the church. It's a holy month of Ramadan, and Muslims in that area refuse to join in any demonstration because of the sanctity of this holy month of Ramadan. So the goons burned the mosque, went to burn the church and looted the church so that it looks like it is Muslim and Christian issue, which is not. There was intervention, and before I came to this studio, we were in the interreligious council meeting, and more meeting is going on. I agree with you that all kind of violence should not have religious face. And if it will have, it is our spiritual responsibility to come out and to do what we call early intervention. Failure to that there will be damage. So what happened yesterday in Kibera? Political goons.
Okay.
So they even invaded a farm, destroyed people's property. So it's not religious. Religious adherents were seriously affected because the places of their worship was damaged. But I believe Christian and Muslims in Kibera are one. They have coexisted for years, and it's not only during this time they should be divided.
Okay.
They should come even stronger together. We have condemned our religious, national religious leaders, both Christian Muslims, were seen yesterday there. You saw them in the TV, and this should never happen again. And politicians using the platform of churches and mosque. In mosque, we never allow them. Mosque is only for worshiping, and I'm asking our Christian brothers not to allow politicians to make political speech during burials and during worshiping time.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you, Sheikh. And just to wind us up, I want to get very few words in your parting shots, Reverend Lucy, before we go to Reverend Dr. Buire for a parting shot. What is your message as your parting shot, Reverend Lucy?
My call is to ask all of us to enhance that freedom of thought. That freedom, religion must be thoughtful, must be meaningful. We have to practice that freedom of conscience, and even the belief systems that we have, so that we can always value humanity above anything else, because God loves all of us. Thank you.
I love that. God loves all of us. Thank you, Reverend Lucy. Dr. Buire, what do you have to tell us as your parting shot in terms of Forb peace?
Thank you, Sam. I want to emphatically state that Forb is a catalyst for development and peace, not only in our country, but also in the entire world. However, we need to note that religion can be used either for good or for bad against humanity. And therefore, this calls for respect of other religions, allowing them to practice in the way that God has revealed himself to them. We should not condemn any other religion because it is not like us. Let us worship the way Allah or God has revealed himself to us, and not condemn those who are not like us in whatever way. That means we should avoid hate of other religions, and therefore allow ourselves to apply our religious practices and beliefs in the way that we understand it and to our own people. For example, we should not allow Sharia to be applied to non-Muslims who may not understand what Sharia is all about, like what is happening in other countries. Thank you very much. I believe that this discussion has been very, very fruitful, and I call upon all those that believe in Forb to ensure that we are able to live and coexist peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Buire. And indeed, this has been very fruitful discussion, especially keeping in mind that this has been our first episode of the Procmura podcast, but more are coming on your way. Sheikh, 3 words.
Yeah, I want to appeal to the population in the continent, Muslim and Christians, to coexist peacefully, and where there is problem, to dialogue. As a result of peace, you can get development. And let us maintain peace in this world so that when we transit, we go to the Almighty Allah and we get also peace on the other side. Because everything that good thing we do on this earth is awaiting for us. Anything wrong that we do here is going to wait for us in the hereafter. So we should know that there is life after death, and let us religious leaders take the responsibility, spiritual responsibility of uniting the two faiths for the sake of development. Thank you very much for watching us.
Thank
Yes.
you, Sheikh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bwire. Thank you, Reverend Lucy, for agreeing to grace our first episode of the Procmura podcast. And that brings us to the end of this, our first episode. And until next time, God bless you. God bless Africa. I've been your host, Sam Abuya from the Procmura Communication Department. Thank you.